Welcome and thanks for tuning in. In this video, we'll be showcasing the F5 Distributed Cloud Web App and API Protection Services API Discovery features, as well as how to configure the BIG-IP Advanced Web Application Firewall and Access Policy Manager's API protection capabilities. Let's take a quick look at our architecture. We're deploying a test API in AWS Elastic Kubernetes Service Cluster with ingress provided by NGINX Ingress Controller. We're protecting our API with the BIG-IP Advanced WAF and Access Policy Manager Virtual Edition. We're using BIG-IP Container Ingress Services with F5 Ingress Link to provide integration between the BIG-IP and our Ingress Controller. We're supplementing this with distributed cloud services to provide API discovery features and complementary protection at the edge. Now let's jump into our demo, beginning with F5's distributed cloud services. First, let's head to our distributed cloud tenant and take a look at our configuration. Once we're logged into the console, the first thing we do is click on the Web App and API Protection tile. And here we have our Edge load balancer. We can take a deeper look at the configuration by clicking the three dots and choosing Manage Configuration. First, let's take a look at our WAF policy. Here we can see our default WAF policy in blocking mode, and all of our settings are set to default. Now let's move on to API protection. Here you can see our API definition based on our API Swagger file. We can drill down a bit deeper and view our API group with all of our endpoints and their expected HTTP methods. Next, let's look at our API discovery settings. Here you can see we have discovery enabled. Now by default, discovery only learns API endpoints on patterns of traffic with response codes of 200. We also have enabled learning on response codes of 300. Now let's take a look at our dashboards. Here we can see we have 21 API endpoints identified. Now this dashboard will contain data from all your configured assets, and we can get the data for our specific application by selecting its load balancer from the list. Now when we look at our API classification, we can see that we have 17 discovered, 11 inventoried, and 9 shadow APIs detected. Now to get to the API endpoints dashboard, you can click from the API classification tile or the tab at the top of the page. Now in this dashboard, you can see all of our APIs that were inventoried, as well as specifics on any shadow APIs. Now the difference here is inventoried APIs are the ones we have definitions for, and shadow APIs would be discovered APIs that were not in the definition. Now that our APIs have been discovered, we can download the Swagger file that's been generated from the learning. And once we have the file, we can pass this on to our BIG-IP to configure protection.
Hello everyone. API Protection Profile makes use of APM and Advanced WAF to protect our microservices and API-based applications using both Access and Advanced WAF security capabilities. In this section, we will make use of the Distributed Cloud API Discovery Swagger file and load it to our API application profile. We need to have APM and Advanced WAF licensed. We head to API Protection under Access section. We start creating the API Protection profile using the Swagger file obtained from Distributed Cloud API Discovery. If the server requires SSL profile, we select a proper profile from this interface, then select the required authentication method. Once the file is rendered, we will be able to see the API profile items, for example, the URIs and methods. API Protection Profiles creates two policies: access per request policy, responsible for the access and authentication, and Advanced WAF policy, responsible for the web application security. Starting with the pull request policy, we have the list of the URIs including parameters and methods to be allowed. Also, authentication methods to be used, whether basic or OpenAuth. Also, there are other options to be included in the pull request policy as per the organization requirements. Moving to Advanced WAF policy that provides application-level security for the API calls, including but not limited to parameters, methods, and request body. API Protection Dashboard provides a single interface to check the incoming request statistics and the hits at both access per request policy and the Advanced WAF policy.
I hope you've enjoyed this quick demo on some of the API protection capabilities of the F5 distributed cloud platform. The connected world runs on APIs. Your banking app uses them, your rideshare app uses them, and even that weather app you check before walking out the door, it gets that data from an API. We interact with them multiple times a day throughout our daily life to do everything from the most essential to the most mundane. They are simply everywhere and more being published every day. Given the sensitive nature of the data that can be exposed by unprotected APIs, the need for effective security cannot be stressed enough. Thank you, and thanks for tuning in.